You found the Live Local Marketing podcast, where business owners share their knowledge about what's working in the market today. No fluff, just their experiences and stories from people who are making it happen. And if authentic, practical marketing resonates with you, be sure to visit livelocalwarmmarketing.com and learn to grow your business on warm marketing referrals. Now, on to the show. Welcome. Thanks for joining us again at the Live Local Marketing podcast. Today, we have Ray Hartjen, and he's going to talk to us about an array of topics. He's got some B2B marketing that he does. He's got some book sales that he does. It's a variety that we're going to talk to him about and some of the things that have been working for him. And, you know, he's been experienced and he knows what he's doing. So we can't wait to dip into that brain and see what kind of knowledge we can get from you today.
Got a variety pack of stuff for you, Billy, and thank you so much for having me on the show. Man, I love what you do with the show, and I love the fast-paced nature of it. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, cool. So for those of you that are just tuning in, a quick review of the process. He gets 7 topics, and we're going to go through them 2 minutes at a time. If he goes over a little bit, it's all right. If he goes under a little bit, also okay. We'll figure that part out. But we have 2 minutes, and at the very, very end, he's going to get a little pitch talking about his business and how to get a hold of him. So once we get through this, picking his brain, taking his knowledge, we're going to show you how to get a hold of him as well. So that way you can also set up meetings and talk to him yourself. Are we ready, Ray?
I'm ready, Billy. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm the host. Of course I'm ready. That's what does it. All right. First, always my favorite question as an entrepreneur. What was your first win?
Man, I am inclined to say my first win was just being born, man. There's a lot of competition coming out there, but first one being born. And then, you know, I'm going to jump all the way to like the last one, because where I come from, you know, the race to the customer, particularly in the B2B segment, there is no second place. Well, I mean, there is second place, but the true competitor is going to think of it as first loser. There is one chance, you know, one purchase, one customer. And so every win is a first win. Right. You know, it's I think you need to celebrate that. You know, you might think of it as a small or whatever, but every win is a first win. It's incredibly competitive out there in the marketplace in any type of business, whether you're B2B, B2C or what have you. You know, cherish the customers, treat every customer as the first win. You know, my first win, you know, I viewed as getting my first job. Was in investment banking, and that's selling yourself. And one thing that's been kind of common throughout my entire career is storytelling. You know, I am a storyteller. I am a writer and a musician. You know, I've, you know, made most of my money being a content marketer and being a marketer for B2C and B2B companies. But that's all around creating stories and engaging customers, right? And, you know, the first real win is, you know, telling the story about yourself and getting employment. So, you know, for those of you out there who like look for jobs, you know, you're always looking about branding yourself, telling the story about yourself. What's the value that you can add to the organization? And if you are selling yourself, not for a job, but selling yourself for what you offer in customers, it's the same thing. How do you tell an engaging story that connects with your audience, that highlights the value proposition that you offer for your services, your products, your experiences, or what have you?
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's a great first win. Do you actually celebrate the wins? Do you take a moment and stop and actually celebrate?
Have to celebrate wins. Sometimes it's like too busy, right? You know, it's like, what? This is one we got to get on with the next one because, you know, things are stockpiling up. Yep. You have to take a breath and think back, not only to celebrate the wins, but to kind of really quickly do a debrief. I mean, if there's, you know, one thing that you can for sure learn from the military, and I'll use like Navy aviators or Air Force aviators, after every mission, sit down into the chairs and let's do a quick little debrief on this thing. You know, what went right? What didn't go right? What went right? Let's see what we can do to replicate those so we can make things go right in the future. And those things that didn't go right, how can we continuously improve to make this whole process more efficient, more effective, more productive, et cetera?
So as you talk about that, so the next question is about your best habit. Is that part of your best habit? Would you say that the debrief and that kind of stuff is your best habit, or is there something else that you think was?
You know, debriefing is a good habit, and certainly collecting feedback from others and being introspective and collecting feedback on yourself is a good habit. It's not my best habit. My best habit is managing time, and you know, that goes back to the various roles that I have, and in those roles, identifying what those objectives are. What do I want to achieve within that role? What am I accountable for? And then focusing on those things that are most valuable to me, and focusing my effort on those things that are really going to move the needle, knowing that there's going to be time for the minutia to kind of fill up the rest of my day, right? So what's the most important things? And Billy, a thing that really helped me out, and I'd like to share with you in the audience quickly, is a timeline exercise that I used to conduct as a trainer, and it was part of a time management course. And it's a simple exercise. It's you just take a piece of paper, or if you're out there in the audience just listening and have nothing to write with, just use it in your mind. This is a simple exercise. Okay. You just draw a horizontal line from left to right, and at the far left-hand side, you make a little vertical tick mark. Far right-hand side, you make a vertical tick mark. Under the left-hand vertical tick mark, write the letter B. That represents your birth. And since you are all smarter than I am, you already know what the right side of the line is. Put the letter D there. That's going to represent your death, right? So that's your timeline of your life. Now comes the introspective part. Where do you believe you are? Where do you think you are on your timeline on this planet, right? And so, Billy, for years, as facilitating this, just to kind of move things along, I would just haphazardly put my tick mark right in the middle, and say, okay, all right, people, audience out there, where's your tick mark? But, I was going to live forever, Billy, and not forever, at least till 100 or whatever. So, right in the middle. Well, things changed for me in 2019, 54 years old. And I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And for those of you in the audience aren't familiar with multiple myeloma, it's an incurable blood cancer, but a treatable blood cancer. So, as part of my kind of like my growth process going through my diagnosis, I did the timeline exercise again for myself. And I thought, hey, Ray, if you're going to be intellectually honest with yourself, you're a little further to the right than maybe where you put yourself before. So what's that mean to you? For me, I looked at it and right away it said, you know what? I have been guilty for far too long of taking time for granted. I would take all tomorrows for granted, next week's, next month, next year, and depending on the topic, maybe, decades. Someday I am going to ... That was me. And I think that doesn't make me atypical from a lot of people, right? So I immediately just, looked at that and said, okay, if you take time for granted, how does that manifest itself to you? And that's when I dawned on me. It's like, man, I take people and relationships for granted because I take time for granted. What's my learning from that? What are the things that are most important to me? What do I need to accomplish, and who do I need to bring along for the ride? And I encourage all of you out in the audience, do that same type of thing. It allows you to focus on what's important to you and who's most important to you. You do that, you're going to be more productive. You're going to achieve your goals. You're going to have that sense of satisfaction, that inner peace of mind. All those things are good, right? So take a couple minutes, invest in it, and learn about yourself with the timeline exercise.
That's awesome. The ... and the yada, those can be dangerous. They're like little tiny things, but they can be really dangerous.
Next thing you know, obviously, years have gone by. It's like gaining 1 pound a month, over a couple of years.
Exactly.
You're 25 pounds overweight. And you're just like, wow, that snuck up on me.
How did that just happen? So clearly you're good at telling stories. It's obvious with your profession. It's obvious through this interview, like you're a storyteller. So how do you, when you sit down with your clients, how do you get them to tell their best stories? A quick break before we get to that next answer, because I know that answer is going to be brilliant, which is why I chose this moment to interrupt. If you love what you're seeing and you want to run your business off of warm marketing referrals, visit our website, livelocalwarmmarketing.com. It's got valuable resources, office hours, memberships, the book, an array of resources to help you get rid of cold calls, cold leads, door knocking, and run a business you can be proud of through referrals and warm marketing. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, and that's a great question, and that's why you're so good at doing this podcast, Billy. The best way to get brand stories out from other people is to, one, ask, and number two, listen. Right? There's just so many things that you can do. A lot of times, particularly when we go to market, I spent 10 years working for companies in marketing for B2B SaaS sales, services, software as a service, right? And boy, we could hardly wait to tell our stories. But everybody from the sales team will tell you it's not about you telling your stories. It's about understanding the potential customer stories. What are their pain points? What are their challenges?
Mm,
What are their opportunities? And maybe it's because they just don't know about you yet, and then maybe there's some brand awareness that then you need to get to storytelling. But, to first tell your story, you need to understand the client's story,
yeah.
the customer story. Now, for a lot of you out there in the audience, you're going to have to do some inference in that, right? You might have a target audience, but you don't really know, you can't really reach out to them. Sometimes you can through polls and things like that, but, try to take, an inference of what your target audience is. Who is your ideal
Yeah.
customer? Create an ideal customer profile of them. What are some of the things that they kind of have in common? You can do that with the customers you already have, and then project that onto your target audience. But for sure, when you do have customers, have that tight relationship with them. It's so much more cost effective to keep an existing customer than to acquire a new customer. So learn their brand stories by asking often and listening.
That's amazing. That's awesome. So obviously you're high energy. So you can do all the things, you can meet all the people. I guess kind of some extroverted tendencies and stuff. So how do you avoid burnout? Because you could easily get really wrapped up into your work. You could really get into this, and you could, before you know it, like be working weeks, hours at a time.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you used the word extroverted. I've always considered myself an extrovert, and so be it. Come through the holiday seasons, though, I'm going to cocktail parties and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I learned the story relatively recently how exhausting it can be and how burnout it can be for introverts to fake being extroverted, right? And it's like trying to pretend to be somebody you're not, and how exhausting that can be. So I address burnout in a couple of different ways. One way is certainly taking that time to celebrate and to recognize things that you've done, and to kind of continuously improve. But what's really cool, I think, about going to market and go-to-market strategies is that there's a lot of opportunities to experiment. And one way to avoid burnout, in my opinion, is try some different things, right? This is one thing that we've done, but, is there a fatal flaw if I should try to do something different? And I think all of us as consumers and customers, we're pretty lenient when you make mistakes. Now, there are some fatal flaws. If you go to market with like hate speech and things like that, you might not get a second chance. But if you go to market really quick and there's a typo in something, we tend to forgive that kind of quickly, right? It's like, but there's so many metrics out there, particularly with digital marketing tools. It's like, put something out there, experiment with it, see if it works. Does it engage? Wow, we stumbled onto something. And if it doesn't engage, it's like, okay, that's good feedback. And we can get those metrics by the end of the day that engage. What could I do maybe a little bit differently here? So, I think, one way to avoid burnout is experiment, try different things and learn from it. And I think that, gets you to thinking about new stuff. It's not, here we are, Billy, it's the same old, I'm going through this, you're trying something new.
ABL, always be learning, right?
Always be learning. Sort of like always be closing.
Always be learning. I like to always be learning better than always be closing, because closing's learning.
Well, I know most salespeople that that's their Bible. That's how they put groceries on the table, right? So
it could be both, though. There's a fine line. Such a fine line. All right. So of all the different strategies you're currently using, what are some of your favorites that you're using right now that are effective, and your client base seems to be enjoying them as well?
Yeah, the thing that I like to talk about most and over the last couple of years is something called revenue orchestration. And revenue orchestration in the B2B world but it's applicable to the B2C world. It is the purposeful coordination of your people, your processes, and your plays to facilitate the buying journey. Because things have changed over the last few years. In the B2C world, we consumers, we started experiencing world-class online buying journeys, 12 years ago or whatever. But things have been slow to change in the B2B world. B2B world, it's like, hey, we're going to give you a little taste of maybe what we can offer. And then if you want some high value content, we're going to hide it behind a form that you need to fill out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Things have changed, man. B2B buyers, Billy, they want to experience the same things that they experience in their B2C journeys that they all do anyway, right? They want transparent pricing online. They want, to do self-serve, the vast majority of their buying journey. They don't want to be hassled with salespeople talking to them. If there's a way that they can convert without it, they want to do that. So in the B2B world, it's like, we have these great people, we have these great processes and systems, and we have these great plays, proven successful plays. How do we kind of reconfigure that world to be able to facilitate the buying journey on the buyer's timeline, with the buyer in control? They're never going to relinquish this control again, right? So, how can we do that? And I liken it to be the aid station at the Olympic marathon road race. As a go-to-market team, we're sitting there with the Gatorade and all the other electrolytes and, maybe a little bit of food or something like that. And they're coming on their buying journey, and it's like, boom, this is what you need right now. Gatorade. And I'm giving them the content or whatever that they need, the information that they need, the data they need there. And then as they go on their buying journey, that's when I get back on my scooter, I go up ahead of them, and then I'm waiting with my team there again. Okay, now you're on your next step of your buying journey. This is the data that you need, and things are different today. Studies show that customer referrals, what we used to think, peer reviews, customer referrals, what we used to think was at the end of the funnel, that's sometimes the first thing looked at by people as they do their online search, going to like a website like G2 and looking at reviews. For us go-to-market professionals, the world's been tipped over. How can you learn? How can you adapt? The favorite things I like to do now is think about the customer, race for the customer, facilitating the customer journey, the buying journey, because they're in control and they're never relinquishing that control again. Just like consumers took wrestled control from their B2C buying journeys years ago.
That's really good. I love that analogy. Use that often? That's usually go-to?
All the time. I mean, every B2B buyer is also a B2C buyer. And for 10, 12, 15 years, they've experienced these world-class experiences. Yet at work, they were kind of, forced into somebody else's selling paradigm. The pandemic changed that. The pandemic changed the fact that, hey, man, we can do things different. And now, every industry, every segment that's adopting. And if you are behind your competitors, you need to catch up. And catching up is by keeping the customer in mind, knowing that they're always right, knowing that they're accepting that they're in control, and adapting your go-to-market strategies to fit the customer, not the other way around. You're not forcing your processes on the customer.
That's awesome. All right. So as you talk about that, there's going to be, you're creative, but I imagine you're using the data and the information to make sure you customize these experiences. So when I use the term useful data, what comes to mind? What do you think that is?
Most useful data is customer data. Know your customer, and there's variety of ways to do that. And we mentioned earlier, Billy. Sometimes it's an inference. You don't some about some customers. So what can you project for the rest to fill in the gaps? And how can you use knowing my existing customer base? That what maybe similarities are others do prospective customers have. But the most useful data for me is knowing your customer, understanding your customer, and then you can adapt everything around that, and an example would be the content, the things that you might have up on your website, and understanding what your customers are searching for. And then also understanding that things are kind of changing. Well, they're not kind of changing, they're totally changing, a few years ago, just a year or two ago, it was still all about SEO. We're going to search engine optimization. Yeah. Now it's a little different, man. Now it's answer engine optimization. So many people are using AI. They want an answer to something. Do you have the content that shows up for an answer? Type in your question. Bam, Billy says this. I've got an answer from Billy. Well, find out more. Click on the link to Billy, and now I learn about Billy's ecosystem, right? So it's understand your customer. Also understand how your customers are going to market, how they're seeking information, education, and the like, and then tailoring your offering to pop ways for them, whether they actually go through a search to get to you, or whether it's something like answer engine optimization, and you want to be one of those answers that's delivered to a searching and asking customer.
Do you ever do surveys and things, or are you using like website data analytics? What is your usual go-to?
Website data analytics are very good, but I love talking to customers, asking customers and surveys, and that works whether you're B2C or B2B. It's if you have a little shop out there, people ask how do you find out about us? If you've not seen the person before, you don't have a relationship, it's ask questions at checkout. Even before checkout, thank you for coming into the shop. What can I help you with? What are you interested in? And, all that is great information for you to adjust your value proposition to win the customer and keep the customer.
That's very, very old school, but useful advice. That's the best way to do it.
It's old school for a reason, though, right? It works. It works, right? Sometimes you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
No. It's the same reason there's cliches. The cliche is a cliche because it's true a lot of times.
Yeah, time honored, right? It's got some legs to it, right?
So if you're bumping into some young entrepreneurs, some people that are just getting started, or they're not quite there yet where they have the experience that you have, what are some ways that you would recommend they build the confidence to take that step to start doing it?
Recognize all the things that you do right. And sometimes, it's not, you can do like 97 things right. Maybe you fall short and you don't get the sale at the end, but you still need to recognize the fact that we did 97, things correct to get there.
Yeah.
And I like looking at, when I talk to customers in the B2B space in particular, and they have hidden assets or gated assets. It's like, hey, customer, if you want this ebook, you've got to download this ebook. But to get that ebook, you need to give me your name and phone number. Yeah, Billy, a lot of us don't like doing that. They're like, if I give you my name and my phone number, my email address, I'm going to get hassled. I'm immediately going to get a call from a sales development representative, an SDR or BDR, business development representative, inside sales guy. And I don't want to do that. So you see a conversion rate on a form fill, that's being like 3.5%. Right. And so I'll have, clients, how do we get that to be like, better? And it's like, you do want that better. 96.5% of the customers that have gotten to your page have opted out because they don't want to give you the information. But hey, congratulations. At least you got customers to that page. Celebrate everything that you did right to get there, right? At least then you made the mistake by asking them some information. I'm a firm believer in giving the content away for free. If you have a value proposition, they're going to come back to you. But all that hidden content behind a paywall, so to speak, that is that information, it doesn't do well. But celebrate the successes that you have. You failed at that. Maybe there are some things you can use, some technology tools to create a better landing page, more attractive, to maybe get that 3% to like a world-class 10%. But still, my opinion from the revenue orchestration perspective, hey, 10%, great. You're still losing 90% of your customers at this stage of the buying journey because you are neglecting to see things on their terms.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question, Billy, about confidence?
Yeah, that's all of it, man. That's a good one. That's awesome. And so before we get to your, we're going to have you do the outro, and we're going to have you to where people can get a hold of you. I think in general, some of the message that I really loved is the fact that you work so diligently on using the creative and your feedback and some of your extrovert behaviors to make a personalized journey for the audience, right? You want those customers to be customized, your stories going to be customized, and it's all going to be wrapped around understanding who it is you're talking to and who it is that your target audience it is. Is that kind of, did I have it pretty well there?
And Billy, for those in the audience, don't be scared off. It's like, man, I don't have time to personalize and customize everything.
Yes, you do.
You don't need to personalize and customize everything. You need to make your customer feel as though it's been personalized and customized to everything. And so, I think that's the key. And, knowing a lot about your customers. For those of you out there in the audience, if there's ever anything I can do to help you with your storytelling journey as a business, please feel free to contact me. Every place you can contact me at my name. My website is Ray Hartjen. That's RayHartjen. And on all the social platforms, my handle is Ray Hartjen, with the exception of TikTok, and that's Ray Hartjen 5. And I think that's because maybe my thumbs got a little too moving too fast.
There's 4 more Ray Hartjens
when I set up my account. But I love hearing your stories. I love talking to you. By all means, reach out to me. My email address is rayhartjen@gmail.com. So I would love to hear your stories. And if you are a cancer patient or a cancer patient caregiver or an advocate, I certainly want to hear your stories and let me know how I can help you along those fights and those journeys. It's been being an advocate for patients and their caregivers has been an honor in my life.
That is wonderful. I appreciate your time today and your perspective.
I appreciate yours.
You learned a lot from me today, and hope you had a fun time.
I had a great time, Billy. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity. I love what you do with Live Local, and this is cool. I hope your audience enjoys this one.
Oh yeah, we will. We absolutely will. Thank you, and hopefully we see you again soon.
All right.